Hello, Matadors and everyone else out there. This is Harold Mumford. I am really excited today to bring a professional engineer into the classroom. You can see we're here at Mount Miguel, and we wish we were all here and that Mike would. Mike has been working with Mount Miguel for about the last 3 years, but we can't be here in person. But we brought this interview today to kind of explore what Mike does and as an engineer and what he has and why he continues to be involved with youth in order to create opportunities for the future of engineering. So I have go ahead and introduce yourself to the people out there.
Yeah, I'm Mike Reed. I'm one of the old gray beards. I've just shaved off my grayish beard. But I've been doing engineering for over 40 years. Really enjoy the whole process from beginning to end, seeing ideas coming into hardware and software, either slowly, which is the work environment, or rapidly, which is a lot of what I see with robotics, whether it be Matadors or Patriot bots. And that's the fun items I really do see. I'm also, I fool around with my own personal stuff. I make projects for home and do those things. Those are equally fun, but the professional part of the job is the real exciting part of it.
So describe what is the general focus of your field of engineering?
Well, I'm a system engineer, so I have this broad overall encompassing challenge of figuring out what everybody needs to do and writing that down in the English language in a very technical sense, obviously, and describing that so that everybody knows what to do, both for initial work and then for historical purposes when we end up checking the work, either per a contract or whether why something doesn't work. Many times the one kind of problem you have is, why isn't this working? This should work. And you go down and realize there's a wire missing, or there's a button missing. There's those kind of things that happen, whether it's a software button or a hardware button. And they go back and look at the document and realize nobody knew that should exist. So now we update the document, so now we don't make the mistake the second time, but we also learn that mentally that next time we look at that, ask tougher and harder questions of people when we start looking at the detail. But it is really all encompassing. I need to know hardware, both electrical, mechanical, and the software. And in our case, the software is very graphical. It's a tool called LabVIEW, and we use the tool in a very visual way, so you can see the flow on the screen from left to right of how the software instruction comes in, all the little steps it needs to make, everything it touches that it needs to do, so you can look at that. And of course, there's always troubleshooting once you integrate it, but that's minor compared to the overall initial design.
And so how would you compare your work and what you do with something that the students could relate to?
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things. Okay, Harold, I wrote it down. I don't remember what it was.
There's a metaphor of Mom, I'm hungry.
Yes. Oh, that's right. Thank you. It's the metaphor I have where you say, Mom, I'm hungry for fried food. And Mom says, okay. And then she fixes you fried pork and fried corn and fried ice cream. And you're going, whoa, wait a sec. I just want and then I want a real ice cream. And so we have to be able to document things in a format that doesn't limit people too much. We're not telling them exactly what to do, and how to do it. We just tell them this needs to be done in a reasonable way. And that gives engineers especially the freedom to use the creativity and maybe think of solutions than I have, but as long as it's implementing that solution, as long as it meets the requirements, I don't care what it is. And it is just very interesting to see that. There's a fairly good set of Facebook things I've seen where the dad makes his kids write instructions of how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and those are instructions, and those have some real hilarity to them. But that's similar to what I do, is where you have to say, yeah, the end goal is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I really don't care if you use 3 fingers and scoop those fingers in the jar and spread the peanut butter on the bread with your fingers, or you use the proper normal way of using a knife. There has to be a write-up to say spread that information and what level of detail you need to get into in every case.
And so when you're doing your work, what is your general work environment like? Who do you work with? How do you get work done?
It is really the best. I mean, the environment is totally professional. Everybody has respect for each other. for the most part, it's, very, very smart people. That's why I say it's different. And then occasionally you have somebody who is just smart. So you work with a variety of people, but mostly it is very smart people, and especially the bosses. They're amazing sometimes how smart they are. Even to somebody as senior as me, they know information and work through that. And you work together as a team. You may work side by side with somebody very closely for a day or two, or even a week or two, and then you get that job done and you're just casually with them. And then the next thing you know, it's been 3 months and you're back with that same person. And then the next time you're working with somebody totally different and new, so you have to learn their knowledge and understanding of what that is. And it's just really a joy to be there every day. I do take the equivalency when I'm talking to young people that high school was just a real interesting experience in general. You're maturing. It's crazy. There's lots and lots of people in there, the noise, the challenge of always learning something new every day in every class. And then you go to college and all of a sudden it's less crowded and less crazy, but it's still challenging to learn. And that's great. And then you go to work and it's much quieter and there's less people and you have a space and you're going, okay, I can really handle this. And now there's this same kind of thing of deadlines, but this deadline is everybody's the same. There's not really competition, to get a better grade, but all do our job all simultaneously. And especially these days, the flexibility of the work environment. Somebody may say, hey, this needs to get done today starting at 3:00 and you work later. And somebody says, yeah, I'd love to come in tomorrow at 3:00 and work till 3 a.m. in the morning. Those kind of flexibility things really do make the project go forward faster. And in a school environment, you obviously can't do that. You can't be in the classroom at 3 a.m. with your teacher. It doesn't work that way. But the work environment is that way.
Well, that's awesome. Now, speaking of that, so your general work schedule, what does that look like as an engineer?
So we at Northrop, because of San Diego and Northrop is mostly in big cities, implements what they call 4-5-9, where you work 9 hours a day, 4 days a week, and then 9 hours a day for those 5 days a week. And that Friday is usually an 8-hour day on the books. But that's what the schedule is. So you have that off Friday, which is nice, but you also have to, you flex your schedule sometimes. As government contractor, sometimes you may take a 2-hour break in the middle of the day to either do a long lunch or go to the doctor, and then you just work later. So I'm salaried as a professional. I make a good salary. So if somebody says, hey, Mike, can you come in on Christmas break, which I did this year, and I came in and did data reduction of the information, the Christmas Eve early, I was home by noon, and the day after Christmas I did 3 days straight of 8-hour days because that was needed for the project. It was just what was needed, and I don't have young kids anymore, so I wasn't impacting anything in that direction. But it's a schedule that's flexible and at the same time demanding as far as you have to be at work, but at the end of the day it is really flexible. I have one engineer who's doing a great job. He lives in Temecula. He comes down at 9, works till 6. I come back in the morning when I come in at 6 a.m. and he sent me 3 emails and I answer those by the time it's 3. And he goes, yeah, I wouldn't have needed that information yesterday. So it's a good environment.
Cool. And so fundamentally your work is pretty much driven by deadlines or the ability, your desire to meet customer delivery, correct?
Yeah, we have what's called an IMS, an integrated master schedule for all our projects individually, and they all obviously aren't starting exactly on the same day. So I'm working 4 projects simultaneously, but supporting other people. And I know I have to get this document done on this date, and I have to get this series of documents done so that the program manager can prepare for the preliminary design review and put all those documents together and either have them reviewed or released. And so the schedules are there and you have to look at that schedule. I'm now looking at schedules that I have to deliver a year from now. So May 2021, I have to be delivering, and I'm re-looking at that schedule saying, can I move anything up? Can I delete anything? Can I look at that? And it is really kind of funny how that messes with your mind of, oh, it's a year away, but if you don't do it now, everything starts slipping, and that's not what you want to do. And it's the same whether you're on a 16-week semester program. If you don't get it done, you can't get a good grade on the final. So yeah, we do that.
We like to call those things deliverables in our program.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you got this time, but it's deliverable at this particular date.
Yeah.
We teach kids how to use a Gantt chart, which is
Yeah.
I know you may use it in.
We use Gantt charts all the time, right? Yeah, we because the programmatic side from both the government and most of industry, we have what we call a kickoff or a system requirements review (SRR), and then we have a PDR, which is a preliminary design review, and then we have a CDR, critical design review, and then we have a test readiness review. So we have all these nice rhyming letters, and then we finally have customer delivery. In our case, it is just a one-step process. We deliver the product to the customer after it completes TRR. Other products go out there and they're delivered at a lower level, and then they go through several other steps outside of what we do before they have first flight. But our station is just a standalone station, so we're done after TRR.
So I guess, especially in aerospace, where you're delivering airplanes, your innovation process and your desire to catch errors early is really important, so that
absolutely, yeah,
deliver the plane, it actually flies, right?
Right. Yeah, and that's why I was in over Christmas, is that we deliver a product. It's a little module, a little bit bigger than, a couple slices of bread, and it has to have its memory loaded properly. And they delivered out of 100 modules they delivered 4 that were found to have not been loaded properly, period. Now, they found 3 other ones that had broken one way or the other. That was a different issue. They looked at it initially as 7, but those 4 out of 100, when you're in production on an F-35 line that's producing 20 aircraft a month, really causes a perturbation that you don't want to deal with. So we basically broke out that loading of the software, we call it code load, into a separate station and had to document all that properly, so that now every module comes in, one certified person's pushing that module and they're pushing the button, waiting the 4 minutes for it to load, documenting all that with screenshots, and then moving on. And I guess, yeah, we're in May now, so I can safely say that we haven't had anybody come back and say it didn't work. So they haven't had any perturbation. So,
and then I guess that's kind of leads me to my next question. What do you like best about your work?
The best part is really hard. I mean, I just enjoy going to work. And in fact, this working from home thing, I really dislike. I mean, I still go with people, but it is really the interaction of people. I was always a person, when I went to school, I wanted to be at school because I wanted to be with people. And at work, I want to be with work people. And at home, I want to be with family. So, there's times where maybe I could work alone, on a beach on a nice warm day. That's okay if you can find an abandoned beach. But for the most part, I like working with people, and there's so much fun things to go on, learning and understanding and dealing with that. Sometimes you have the conflicts where, person A says these documents must be reviewed by 4 other people, and you have to really fight those battles. But most of the time it is, this content of this document needs to be improved, and you all agree and you work forward to improve it because somebody found something that was not to their, high standards, which it should be. And so I like that work. But the core is, I do like airplanes. I've always been an airplane person since I was 11 years old. I liked airplanes when I went to the Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. with my grandparents. And it's just always been that way. And they're just kind of the epitome of a real interactive device flying through the air, which is 3-dimensional, versus a car is 2-dimensional, or a rocket ship is computer controlled. And I like that concept and getting down to the details of those. And that basis of that is what I really do like.
Awesome. And speaking of what you like, there's always stuff yet, and when you go to work, maybe don't like. What might be some of the challenges that you have to go through when you're working?
Yeah, as a senior person, you realize there's a lot of things you don't like doing that you have to do. And my basic methodology is get it done the first of the day, get it off your plate, no matter how ugly it is, and do that. I literally this morning sat down for 52 minutes, because I wanted to see how long it took, and looked through 75 drawings to find out if they had been revised since we last documented it. And 2 of them were in the process of being revised, and they hadn't told me, so I wasn't happy with that. So I sent them an email and saying every revision should let me know it's been going on. But that grunt work of just literally typing in 2237325, that is just no fun, but it has to be done. It was the end of month last month. We have to have that metric for our work to be able to track it.
Yep. Your schemata are pretty intense too. The drawings that you have, I mean, class are nice and clean. Yours are just whoa. Oh,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Fortunately, CAD makes it easier.
yeah.
We look at them hard copies most of the time, but I know there's a CAD model someplace that if I really don't understand something, I call up that engineer and say, "Look at that model and tell me what this really is." So
Yeah.
they can do
I
that.
when I was in college during my summers, I worked for a NASA satellite tracking station as with the systems engineer, the person who did basically your role over all the deep space antennas.
Right.
Favorite role for me was to actually um, deliver documents to him and categorize, all the documents in the library. And so I know I've seen them.
Yeah.
They're beautiful pieces of work and
Yeah.
detailed.
Yeah, I
Um,
have a lady working for me. She's senior, but she's doing software all her life, and she really wanted to do something different. And so now she's doing some hardware. But she literally was looking at drawings, look at like they were just written in Greek, and all they were was mechanical things with the little balloons with the number in them. And she goes, "What do all these mean?" And I just,
well,
okay, she could have looked at code, and I could have said, "What does that little line of code mean?" And she would have known off the top of her head. But I said, "That balloon ties to the parts list. Balloon? What's a balloon? It's a balloon."
that's
So.
awesome. So how did how did you end up coming into to engineering? Basically, you're a high school student.
Yeah.
Think, okay, I want to be an engineer. How does that happen?
Yeah, and I'm one of the actually rare cases. My dad was an engineer, and I'm in, I'm in Los Angeles County, Los Angeles City's unified school system. And at that era in the 1960s, they were basically training blue collar workers. So every male took shop classes. Now there was some science aspect to it. I took horticulture. Obviously, I was never going to be a farmer, but I also took, metalworking and drafting and electronics and other things. And we took those 4 different classes in 1 year. So you learn those things. And I took them for 2 years. So I had 8 years of that knowledge. And then I jumped to high school, and they basically take the next level up. And I don't remember now why I didn't have woodworking in junior high, but I had it in high school and I just loved it. And we had moved to a new area. My dad, who was old, needed some help building things. And here I am, this freshman, going, "Okay, I can help you cut wood with a power tool, Dad." We never had done that. So I learned those things. And my mother, taking the bigger, motherly look, said, "Maybe you should work harder on your math classes and take some more of this other interesting stuff." And I'm going, "Well, yeah, I like it. That's fine." So yeah, I suck in English and history. They weren't fun, but it was all handwritten, and I don't like handwriting. It wasn't computer typing, and I was a good typist, but it just, you see, when you type it on type hard time, you see the errors so much. It was frustrating. So I would not put enough effort in those. But math, I could do a math problem by hand in 10 minutes and be done. And then I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to science, which was interesting, or engineering. And again, I wanted to be something a little bit different than my dad. I respected what he did. And, he brought some work home and some consulting work home, making money for a family, money for family. And then I said, well, I'll go to a JC for a year. And they had good JCs. They weren't crowded. And I showed up, and I'm taking this night class of, what's the term? Do you use geometry terms to get the true length of a line? What is that called? Descriptive geometry, some sort of geometry. And I'm the youngest kid in there. I'm a freshman, but all these older guys are there, and they're going, "I wish I had gone to school straight out of high school." So I did that, and I learned from them a lot, and I saw what they were doing, and I appreciated that. And I realized, okay. And then the counselor comes in, sees my grades, finally, and he goes, "Have you ever heard of Cal Poly San Luis Obispo?" And literally, I had never heard of it. I had never heard of that school. My mother graduated from Northridge when I was 17. She had gone to school and had me, and then went back and wanted to get her degree when I was 17. And again, I could drive around the family around. So she was going to school. And Cal Poly was the way it was. And I tell people the story where my very first quarter there, I walk into the welding class. The teachers, they're all set up ready to go. They teach you about the basics of welding, some safety, and then they put a torch in your hand and you're melting metal. Oh, this is great. And then I walk into calculus class going, this is a pain. I'd much rather be welding. And then slowly but surely you realize, but I don't want to do welding all my life. So maybe I can become an engineer and know what welding is, and then work through that and understand that. And the hands-on doing thing is a big part of what Cal Poly was. And I really enjoyed every aspect of it. It was just with the way I worked. And I really respect other people who work that way and see. And I again, working with young people, they never held a drill in their hand, never driven a screw. So, you demonstrate that, and then they struggle for it a few times. The next thing you know, they're driving screws like they've been doing all their life, like I have. Okay, and that's what Cal Poly is. It gives you a taste of everything, and then you go out to the working world and work with it.
That's awesome. That's a nice plug. My principals will be really happy with you.
Yeah.
SLO. But also the Cal Poly schools, I've always said they're dollar for dollar some of the best education. I mean, the best education in the world. And the ability to actually have an opportunity to do some hands-on, something you get excited about. Speaking of being excited, what was the most exciting project that you worked on as an engineer?
Yeah, there's really two or three that are very interesting. The first one is when I was first went to Edwards Air Force Base, they were flying F-16s, and that amazing plane could pull 9Gs. And they found no other plane had done that, and they found that the pilots were saying they couldn't do that very effectively. And as it turns out, Swedish Air Force was developing a plane that could pull 9Gs. It's some magic number for some reason. I don't know why they haven't gone higher. It's been 30 years. And so they had developed a new G suit that had features besides squeezing your legs with air pressure. It also squeezed your belly, and then it also squeezed the face mask, which the oxygen was flowing into, and it actually forced the oxygen in, and it sensed the G's. So it was a bunch of systems that are out there. And here I am, I haven't been to Edwards more than 6 months, and I'm working with pilots. Never worked with pilots that close, and it was really fun to work that way. And that basic system that we tested that summer, and when pilots went out there, literally as the last series of tests, and the pilots flying my plane were able to fly 4 intercept missions on one overall mission, and were less tired than the people who had done 2. And I'm sitting in the meeting, and they're all talking about it, going, "No, you can't. You have to be lying." And they go, "No, we were feeling so much better." That really made my day. And the Air Force actually flies a system called Combat Edge now, that they are just now doing Combat Edge 2, making some minor improvements to it. So it's pretty impressive. And then the other one I did is I did that when I came to San Diego. We installed a communication system that basically allowed pilots to text to each other. Pilots have to talk on the radio, but sometimes radios don't work that well. Maybe things were garbled, and it takes a long time to really communicate. And somebody said, this system will do texting. Let's give them a system to do texting for a cargo plane. Cargo planes weren't that interesting. And they did that system, and it worked well. And then as it turned out, one of those cargo planes landed at a remote base, and just about that same time, a forward air observer for the Air Force had been shot in the leg, and they were able to put him on this plane, which had no communication with the main base except for this texting system, and take off and warn the main base that whatever they call the code coming in, guy was wounded, and they basically saved his life because they were ready for that through this basic texting system. And since then, it's been 7 or 8 years, they've added that feature to a lot more systems because texts are so much less bandwidth and are so precise. And the key thing, the text is there. If you say something to somebody and say, "My name is Fred," and they hear, "My name is Zed," it's confusion. But if you have a text that's recorded, and it's recorded on a hard drive, there's no communication on that. There's no miscommunication. So those
awesome.
are both. Yeah, but it's all involving airplane and the people. The people side was very interesting to me. I was surprised by that.
So kind of like in summary, I mean, basically, if you could talk to you are talking to high school students. If you could tell them maybe some advice or something that you've learned along the way that get to the degree or the career that they want to get to.
Yeah. I mean, the degree is important. The personality's there. I didn't know that when I was in high school, but everybody now knows you have to be well-rounded. You have to do outside activities. I mean, I was a Boy Scout, but I stopped that when I was at the end of 10th grade because I wasn't getting what I wanted out of that. And my parents were too busy to understand that I just needed some help from them to refocus that. But there weren't as many things to do. I mean, no junior ROTC, nothing like that. Those are important things to get there, and then the life. And, I had fun in college. You have to have fun, but Cal Poly at the time was a dry campus, so I was not tempted to do anything but have fun, at the time. And in fact, watch 2 people get busted for having alcohol on campus, and one guy, he had enough marijuana to whatever. He was obviously selling it, but he was arrested and taken away. I never saw him again. But those are fun. And then working is also the same thing. You have to have fun with it. And it's not just work. It's having lunch with people, and it's having meeting people after work occasionally and do those things. And you do that. I tell the story. I've been working 2 years, and the infamous movie E.T. the Extraterrestrial came out. I was working so hard and the lines were so long that there was no way I could see it. And then somebody said, let's go at lunch on a Wednesday. And we went to the boss and said, I'm going to go at lunch on Wednesday. And he goes, as long as it's on your time card. And we took off and went to lunch and saw ET and came back and worked until 8 o'clock that night. So it was kind of fun, but those kind of flexibilities are there. And the work is there. There's no way to get out of the work, no matter how smart you are. You can think, oh, if I get a PhD, I have to work less. No, if you get a PhD, you have to work harder. If you get a master's, you have to work harder. But it's all work. It's all being there. There's people who work 12-hour days and don't even blink an eye. There's people who struggle through making 6 or 7 hours a day, but it's not what you need to see, in the overall scheme of things. So I balance my life and my work environment a lot, but I'm glad I'm an engineer, and I'm glad I'm smart to be able to work through that. Yeah.
Well, we certainly appreciate you, Mike, and I
Okay.
appreciate this opportunity to have this interview with you.
Sure.
I know that when things get back and rolling again, you'll be working with Grossmont, with Patrick Henry, Mount Miguel, and
Yeah.
your outreach to spread engineering and robotics throughout this entire area has been amazing. And I just want to let you know, say thank you. And students, you'll get an opportunity to meet Mike and take that opportunity as back into school.
Yeah.
That time comes. So,
Yeah.
Mike, for being here and talking. And is it okay if I share this with other Grossmont schools?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
It was good.
They might appreciate having the interviews come to them too.
True.
It'd be nice to reach more kids at home.
Exactly.
So stay safe and thank you.
Okay. Appreciate it.